I am the one who led the fight to transfer the file of Dr. Besigye from the court-martial to the civilian court. You remember, I was even chased away from Parliament. I went to Parliament and the Speaker said, don't come back unless you have a report that Colonel Besigye is appearing in a civilian court. But I actually have no power. I can't call a judge and direct a judge. Some of you think I can call a judge and say, please give bail to that one. Don't give bail to... We will have messed up the system. The next time when Honorable Sarah Dong is in trouble, she'll say, oh, why don't you call the judge? We don't want to be like Mr. Trump, who calls FIFA and says, suspend the suspension. I think first we must understand the system. Now, let's get a few things straight. Who are the people that are in the news? First, we have the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. I was out of the country. I don't know what really happened. Maybe somebody will tell me. He got bail, and I heard him announcing that he was resting. Then the next thing I heard, he was really breathing fire. Now, for those of us who like being in the struggle, we struggle for impact. You see, when you're an army, you don't do too many parades, because a parade does not kill the enemy. Okay, parade looks nice, you can display your marching skills and so on, but at the end of the day, you must also know that when the contact begins, it may not end well with you. I do not know what his current state is, but the right to apply for bail is a right open to all Ugandans. So with that history that I've given you, and the debate which took place in Parliament, and the decision of the court, which everybody celebrated, that civilians should not be tried in the court-martial. We are still struggling to transfer all the cases because the DPP's investigation team has to look at all those files afresh to prepare them. And that process is going on. I want people to know that the government is committed to complying with the decision of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the Supreme Court. And the government also made those changes. That is why, for the first time, members of the court-martial were subjected to interviews by the Judicial Service Commission. It had never happened before. Lastly is the question of a fair trial. What is a fair trial? A fair trial must be speedy. That time when we were in Parliament, you remember I had a heated exchange with one of the people on the opposite bench who said, why is the government not transferring the files? And I said, by the way, as a government, we lost the case. You know that government lost the case. We lost. So when you lose the case, it is the winner to go and extract the order from court so that it is executed. But if you have lawyers who spend more time politicking than fighting for you, you can have problems. But also, when you have decided that a case is political, then you should take the Mandela route and be totally unapologetic. Actually, that is the right route. Because Mandela stood and said, you have left me with no option but to plant bombs, to bring down the apartheid system, And I'm not here to apologize. He even said, you judges, you are the ones who should be here to be on trial. So what is going on in Uganda? I do believe that all those suspects who are before court are entitled to a speedy trial. And according to the law, they are now entitled to mandatory bail, unless there are other reasons for them to be kept. But those are not decisions of the minister. Because bail should actually be the smallest thing. I saw how people were celebrating the bail for Honorable Miriam Matembe, the bail for Timothy Kalyegira. That is now, I call it the low expectation syndrome in Uganda. The expectations of Ugandans has become so low that now you're supposed to be grateful when bad things are not done. You should be grateful when good things are done. If I'm carrying a stick, then you can come and say, thank you for not beating me, sir. But the stick is not for beating just anybody. I call upon Ugandans, let's continue insisting on the rule of law and constitutionalism. But we must also understand who is supposed to do what. Discussion in the IPOD summit. Now, as the chair of the Cabinet Standing Committee on Human Rights, we still expect to get a full briefing by the security chiefs, which includes the CDF, the Inspector General of Police, the Commissioner General of Prisons, the Director General of External Security Organization, and the Director General of Internal Security Organization. We believe the information they will share with us as the Cabinet Standing Committee on Human Rights will help us understand what is going on better. I don't like talking about things that I don't understand fully. So, for the record, the members of the Cabinet Standing Committee on Human Rights include myself as the chair, the Minister of Internal Affairs as the deputy chair, and the members are Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Local Government, Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, the Attorney General, the Government Chief Whip, and ex-officio Secretary General of the NRM. Now I want to picture all those people in one room being briefed, because we must act as the whole of government. Now I understand the reason why people make the comments they make on social media. I want to assure you that we should let the system that is established work. In the same way that we were able to understand the 2020 unrests and the tragic happenings, I believe even this one we will get to know more. I'm not the judge, but I think all parties, the accused persons and the prosecution, should agree to move with the case forward. In any case, all decisions are even appealable. I believe that when I get more information, I'll be back to explain to you what really is happening in these cases. I also listened to the speech of the president when he addressed the nation, and he basically said the same thing I've said now. That the CDF's radical response to radicalism in the opposition. And the answer to that is for us not to be watching the game of the radicals. The answer is for us to focus on the real game that takes Uganda forward. And DP is in the best position to lead that. For those who have questions in English, I want to give you time now. Yes, please.
Thank you, my chairman.
I have not appeared here for a long time. I've seen many of you provoking me on social media, but a man of my age and experience is not easy to provoke. I want to thank the party leaders who continue to be faithful to our historical mission. I have 4 issues to address this morning in a press conference which is one of the very first ever since the historic battle for speakership. Most of the press conferences we have held here were about saving Parliament. And we have saved Parliament. What is left now is to fix Parliament. But I'm not now the one in charge of fixing Parliament. We were able to uproot Jezebel from Parliament. I was not successful in planting myself. Other people planted themselves, but that is okay. I used to tell you things, and many of you were terrified by the things I was telling you. But in the politics of Uganda, I'm the giraffe. I see very far. There are people who are clinging to a dying power center. And that power center went down in flames. I want to thank you, members of the media, for consistently shining a light on corruption in Uganda. I want to thank social media activists. They may not be journalists, but when they point their cameras, people begin to see things. I also thank those who stood very firmly to demand change in Parliament. They took a lot of risks. Myself, as the front runner, we had Lydia Wanyoto, who stepped forward without fear from within NRM and said, no, we can't go on like this. We had Alioni Odria, who also stepped forward. We had Professor Akiki, who also stepped forward. And we had Namganza Passis, who also stepped forward. That group of 5 people is what kept Uganda focused on the real problem. Sometimes people can spread a message that all you want is a position, but ours was not about the position, and I told you that before. So we have saved Parliament, and we are pleased by the moves that are going on. I'm calling for the authorities that are in charge of investigation that everybody should be investigated. Nobody should be spared. All and sundry. There should be no protection for anybody. After all, it's the President of Uganda who during his inaugural address said, this is Kisanja no sleep, and no corruption. We will not be taken seriously if we only charge small people. We must charge even the big people. Take them to court so that if they are not found guilty, they will go scot-free. But we demand due process in the fight against corruption. We repeat our call for a stolen assets recovery tribunal. You remember in the struggle that I was leading to save Parliament, there were even efforts to blackmail me. I remember somebody posted a picture of a huge building somewhere in Chanja saying this is Mao's shopping mall. I said, please, let me meet you there, and if indeed you can prove that is mine, I will sign a transfer form immediately so that you become the new owner. That one died. If I had any stench of corruption on me, it would have come out. Sure. You all know that. Everything was thrown at me. Personal blackmail, threats, but we stood firm. It is now up to the new leadership of Parliament to take the good ideas and fix Parliament. It is not enough to say you have given committees back their power and money. What matters is that Parliament must serve the people's agenda. There are many proposals we made. The number of days that Parliament sits must increase. Ugandans should be given an opportunity to set the agenda of Parliament. Even the opposition should be given the opportunity to set the agenda of Parliament. We must have vigorous question times. But ultimately, all that depends on the quality of people the voters send to Parliament. When I was growing up, there was a computer language called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. You can't put garbage on this end and expect anything else from the other end. But that is now a continuous struggle for all of us. Parliament still needs fixing. It is therefore too early to celebrate. Today, the 4 issues I want to talk about is, number 1, I'm back at party headquarters to restore order in the party. I'm here to clean up the party of anything or anybody who is not focused on the goals set by our founders. Secondly, I'm also here to encourage our members to step forward and seek election to local councils and also women councils. I'll also talk about the changing power dynamics in Uganda and the position of DP in that situation. I see all sorts of analysts on social media and even on TV. They're a bit confused. Friends, there's no substitute for experience. If you were traveling and you met someone who knows the road, but also you met someone who wants to give you a map, would you trust to walk with the person who knows the road, or would you rather have a map and find your way yourself? I think you're better off walking with someone who knows the road. Some of us know these political roads of Uganda. Lastly, I will talk about the issues that I've been seeing in the media, issues of corruption and human rights. So how do we restore order in DP? We restore order in DP by reminding every member and every leader of their responsibility to the party. Just like restoring order in a country begins with reminding every citizen of their responsibilities as citizens. I wish to announce formally that this month, at a date to be announced, we are going to hold a week-long retreat for members of the National Executive Committee and our elected members of Parliament. The purpose of the retreat is to orient our leaders to the goals of the party. The disease we are treating is disorientation. And you treat disorientation by orienting people. It will be an opportunity for those of us who have been in politics for long to share our experiences with our young new leaders about the need to be persistent. One of our members of parliament won after 4 attempts the MP for Aswa in Gulu district. Many people lose one election and then they turn tail and run. That's not the spirit of DP. During the retreat, we shall also work on our next 5-year strategic plan for the party. DP is in need of renewal. We need new blood in the Democratic Party, primarily because of some of the problems we are facing in the leadership of the party. And the problem is, it has a name. It is called misguided ambition. Why is it misguided? It is misguided because it is not based on the constitution of the party. There is no position in the party which is donated. During that retreat, we shall also spare 2 days for a meeting of the National Executive Committee. And during that meeting, we shall approve nominees from the DP Women's League. Our constitution requires that the number of women in the National Executive Committee should not fall below 30%. Right now, the number is below 30%. So the National Executive Committee has a duty to approve, I believe, at least 5 women to join the National Executive Committee. We will get recommendations from NEC members, but primarily from the Women's League. And then the National Executive Committee will make that decision. Now, that is our constitution. You saw the NRM the other day inviting members to their Central Executive Committee. We also have that provision to cater for women. I wish to call upon members of the Democratic Party to step forward and contest for positions as Local Council 1 chairpersons and Local Council 2 chairpersons, and also as chairpersons of women councils countrywide. I need to remind members of DP that all parties have problems. When members of our party are talking, they talk as if they're the only ones with problems. Now, gentlemen and ladies, if you want to feel good, go and visit the hospital or go and visit a cemetery or go and visit the prison. You'll come back whistling and smiling because you'll really feel good that you are still around. When I became president of this party, we had 6 members of parliament. That's where we are now, against all odds. We pushed the numbers up to 16, including Iyala. Some of you have forgotten the fight we led to open up Iyala. Those days, Iyala seats were a preserve of NRM and FDC. They would sit and agree and share the positions. NRM would take 6 and FDC would take 3. And you Ugandans thought that was okay. Until DP came forward. The first thing we did was to go and meet the Secretary General of NRM, the Right Honorable Mama Mbabas. We told him that we wanted the elections. Those days, the 9 names of the nominees from NRM and FDC would be tabled by the Speaker before Parliament, and the members will simply say aye, and they go to Arusha. There were no elections until DP came in. So DP has always been a game changer in the politics of Uganda. Why? Because we fight on principle. Our core principle is truth and justice. So in the same way, some of our members are losing confidence. But that's not DP's problem. That is their problem. They cannot claim that it is based on the party or on Norbert Mao. We have sitting members who are sitting LC1 chairpersons, LT2 chairpersons. I'm told some of them are contemplating contesting as independents. I want you to know that there is no return ticket to DP if you contest as an independent. You will have left the party. We had many people here who got excited and went to NUP, the former president of the DP Women's League, Aisha Waligo. You remember her? She got very excited and went to NUP recently, and she beat the dust in Kalungu. You hear the lamentations of those who went and formed the party called DF. With a lot of pomp and a lot of money, I don't know from where. But they were relegated before being born. Other parties have been relegated, like PPP relegated, JEMA relegated.
Ecological party.
The ecological party, yeah.
Resents party. Lusania.
So, I want members of DP to think about those who founded DP. DP is a real political party. It's not just some contraption. I call upon our members to regain their confidence and go and spread our message. Some people think it is their duty to explain things they don't understand. Others were saying the party is no more. Others were saying Mao is now NRM. But during the race for speaker, you saw that NRM said clearly that I'm not NRM. I think the speakership race answered the big question. Our cooperation agreement is like the arrangement of the Interreligious Council of Uganda. The Protestants sit with the Muslims and Catholics and born-agains and Orthodox. It doesn't mean that if you're a Muslim and the chair is a Catholic, then you have become a Catholic, or that you eat pork for that matter. Or if you're a Catholic and the chair is Muslim, then you would be accused of also being married. But we have the courage to continue educating Ugandans that the political parties in Uganda must have a common ground. That is the journey we started in 2022. We need all political parties to learn to talk together about the principles for which they stand and to defend those principles. As for me, I have no apologies for the journey that we have made, because we have changed debate in Uganda. And if anybody ever thought that our cooperation agreement has not made a change, Uganda now realized that we need national dialogue and we need national reconciliation. Why did the president send the vice president and some cabinet ministers to Mengo, Bulange? That is dialogue. You talk about agreed topics. I don't think the NRM now agrees with federalism, which DP supports but NRM does not support. And I don't think they discussed federalism in Bulange. They must have discussed other things which they can advance together. And I don't think Bulange agrees with some of the policies of NRM entirely. Disagreement is normal. But there is a political tendency in our country that once you disagree on one thing, then even the things on which you agree stop to matter. We will continue championing national dialogue, which the president supports. I'm going to publish the proclamation the president issued some time back, even before I became a minister, endorsing the idea of a national dialogue. He signed it. It is taking time. I see people on social media saying, Mao, you promised us a transition. How come it hasn't happened? First of all, you say you don't believe in me. You don't believe in the cooperation. Then at the same time, you say, why are you not doing this? The other day when there were arrests, I saw some people saying, why are you quiet? We need to hear your voice. But you are saying, I'm a fool, I am useless. Why do you want the opinion of a useless person? And then people, what about those who are talking? People are talking, but most of those who have been talking have not been talking about principles. Either they're insulting the president, insulting his family, insulting the CDF. Recently now I saw some of them say they have nothing to say. But today I will share with you my thoughts. DP has always been the conscience of Uganda. Conscience is that little small voice in your head which tells you that what you are doing is wrong. It is not forceful, it is not powerful, but it is consistent. That voice which tells you not to do something you want to do when no one is looking. That is what a conscience is. And a country needs a conscience. And the only party that can be the conscience of Uganda is the DP. I hear people talking about sacrifice, imprisonments, and death. Our DP leaders were being shot with bullets in broad daylight, like on the street there. A member of parliament from DP, somebody from the National Army just cocks a gun and shoots him dead. That's what happened to Sebugwao in Mubende. That's what happened to Muhindo in Kasese. That's how Crispus Kionga of UPM became an MP in 1980. I urge Ugandans not to forget our history. There is nobody who can lecture DP on struggling for freedom and democracy. There's nobody with a qualification. There's even nobody who is qualified to lecture DP on suffering. We have had more people in prison than any other political party in Uganda. Those skulls and bones buried in the Luwero Triangle, the majority are DP because it is the DP votes which were stolen.
Yeah.
The UPM of President Museveni had no votes. What votes were there to be stolen? So the UPM and DP had a common cause to fight abuse of power. The greatest threat to democracy is always abuse of power. I have said here before that DP won the 1980 elections, and I asked the person who was a candidate. I've said here, I asked Dr. Semo Gerere, why are you so sure that you won the 1980 election? And he told me the Secretary of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Vincent Sekono, called him and said, congratulations, sir, you are our next president. And soon thereafter, people with power came with other announcements. So, what we call a transition is breaking the cycle of chaotic change. That's what the transition is about. For some of you think a transition is simply changing a face in State House. The transition means that Uganda can have one president leaving and another one coming in without bloodshed. That's what a peaceful transition is about. And that one, I cannot do it alone. You, the citizens of Uganda, you have this opportunity to rally behind me and DP to demand that. But as long as you talk as if you are saying, you are not going to achieve it, you are not going to achieve it, then we won't achieve it. But at least God will judge me fairly because I am trying. For you who are heckling, God will punish you for heckling somebody who is trying. Do you know how much courage it took for me to sign that cooperation agreement in that environment of 2022? That's not physical courage, but moral courage. The courage to do the right thing. Physical courage is easy. Anybody can pick up a sword and fight. Anybody can get a gun and fight. Anybody can engage in blows. That is only demanding physical courage. But moral courage is rarer than physical courage. And DP is the main source of moral courage in Uganda. That is the reason why our DP leaders worked with NRM for 10 years. Then there was a great divorce, for which Uganda paid the price. In the 10 years that DP and NRM were working together, the economy grew because we lent our best people to the government. If you read your history, you'll understand what happened. Two, we made another bold attempt. Now, these objectives of DP remain constant. So, how do we respond to the changing dynamics of politics? What are the changing dynamics? When I took the leadership of DP, it was assumed that DP should naturally follow FDC. That is what was assumed. But we sat and made our decision as a DP and decided not to be part of the coalition which they call the Inter-Party Cooperation, IPC, of 2010. For that, we were called sellouts. They said we had been bought. The reason I form a political party is because I have different views of Uganda from yours. What business of yours is it to look into my decisions and why I'm... It is none of your business, really. I think the arrogance of FDC those days is the reason they have dwindled from 37 MPs to 9. That kind of arrogance is the reason why that party dwindled. They spent more time talking about how DP has betrayed the struggle. Which struggle? Yet, DP headquarters was the first point of arrival of Dr. Besigye after he left the army. It is the Young Democrats who welcomed him. But you people in the media, you are not helping Ugandans because you just look at things from the surface, you don't go deep, and therefore you don't help Ugandans to make solid decisions. We were attacked. I wrote an article and I said, history shall absolve us. Hasn't history absolved us? Yes. Because we had opposition leaders who were, DP does not believe in violence. That's number one. We don't believe in violence. That one is our non-negotiable trademark. So, despite the attacks on us, after 2011, we said, let's see how we can work together again. We sat together and we came up with the idea of walk to work as a form of protest. Some of us spent some 2 weeks in prison because of that. I kept a diary when I was in prison. I think I should publish it. We formed something called TDA, the Democratic Alliance. But John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, who had parted company with President Museveni, and Kizza Besigye could not agree on who should lead us, even after some of us stepped down. So who is betraying the struggle? Let me tell you what the struggle is in Uganda. The struggle in Uganda is against abuse of power. That has always been the struggle. And how do you fight? By holding power accountable. It is the same abuse of power which leads to human rights abuses and even corruption. You cannot be corrupt if you don't have power. Tell me one person who is corrupt without power. From the smallest police officer controlling a traffic junction must have the power to stop you and ask for your driving permit, and then he pockets it. and says, now, what are you going to do for me? Children are about to go back to school. That is how corruption is. He has some little power over you. Or a public servant who needs to sign a document. Or a procurement officer who needs to approve your contract to build a road. Or an accountant who needs to sign on a contractor's paper that the contractor has performed this contract and now needs to be paid. And it starts with simple questions. So what are you going to do for me for this weekend? I wish Ugandans could talk about their encounters with corruption. Haven't you people encountered corruption? Even in the media, there's corruption.
Not too much.
We have pay-as-you-go journalists. We saw them during our struggle to save parliament. Some things I said in Chankwanze never featured on your TV screens because calls were made to some journalists and said that one must not play. For instance, the part where I was cheered so much in Ngoma. That part was deleted. That is corruption in the media. When I was introduced, we also have Norbert Mao. There was deafening cheer, more than the one of the former speaker. But mine never appeared on the TV screen. So if we are fighting corruption, let's fight corruption 360 degrees. You cannot fight it partially. So what circumstances have changed? Number one, we have emerging centers of influence. Now, as an analyst, you must analyze them. So, the former Speaker of Parliament had created a very, very big center of power to the extent that she could even influence who sits on the Electoral Commission. I don't want this one. I want this one. You remember the changes that came when the president appointed the Electoral Commission. You must have witnessed the drama. One day I'll tell you the story in detail. Some of us had our opponents sponsored heavily. Even the court case against me, you remember when there was a court case filed against me by a candidate who was number 3. Isn't that strange? But all of that, you know, a big tree falls on the small ones. So some people are now cooling in prison. Others are still at large. They are on the way. So in this struggle to fix parliament, a new force emerged. The force of PLU. And it is a reality we must look at. Don't look at things the way you want them to be. Look at things the way they are. So, this new force emerges. First, they endorsed the former speaker and her deputy in a statement. Then they asked me to drop out of the speakership race. And I said, me, I'm on my journey. By the way, I want to tell Uganda, me, I'm on my journey. You can even leave me alone if you don't want to move with me. It is okay, because you didn't start with me anyway. You know where I started. Were you there when I was starting? Even those in DP that you think are very close to me, they were not there near me. So nobody really can say that they know how Mao started or where Mao is going. Me, I'm on my own journey. How I will end,
God knows.
only God knows. So leave me alone. Don't even offer me advice, because you were not there. You were not there. You start saying, this is Mao's tight. What tight? There's no tight. It's me and Uganda. My tight is Uganda. If I were to have a second wedding ring, it would be for Uganda, but maybe it is this one now, this bracelet. I think this is now the one. So, I stated politely that we have to fix Parliament. Unless you can tell me that you have a plan on how to fix Parliament, then I wrote to the NRM requesting to be given a hearing by their top organ, the Central Executive Committee. I also requested to address the Parliamentary Caucus. It was a big insult that I was not invited. Why? Uganda has a problem of radicalism. I've stated it here before, that there are radicals in NRM, radicals in the opposition. What we are witnessing is the two radical sides. Now, we the Ugandans who are not radical, we are the majority. So let's gather together. That is the only way forward. I have said it before. One time I stood here and I gave you an illustration. I said, there are those who want change. They want President Museveni out of office. That's what they say. And they think that is what change means. But for me, that's not the definition of change. Because we have three things. We have President Museveni, the man. Then we have got President Museveni, the machine he has built over 40 years. Then we have President Museveni, the mindset. You must deal with all the three. And the only way to deal with it is through constructive engagement. There's no other way. You can't deal with something you don't understand. So, I told you that if the president is like a person on top of a tree, then we have two types of people who have different approaches on how he can come down. The radicals in the opposition are coming with an axe and saying, we are cutting down the tree. That will bring you down whether you like it or not. And we are saying no. Then they say, the person on the tree has bought you. That's why you are stopping us from using an axe. They don't know that that tree is the state of Uganda. So what is the point of having state collapse? Some of us are saying, let's build a ladder through dialogue and have clear rules that the person on the tree can climb down and live with the rest of us, and the citizens agree on who should climb and be up there. That's how normal countries function. Congo has done it. You see, Ugandans really disrespect Congolese, but they have done one thing we have failed to do. Burundi has done it in their own rudimentary way. They have shown that it is actually possible for one leader to leave and another leader to come in. So, the response to radicalism by DP is to call for a national dialogue. so that the radicals on all sides. So the radicals in NRM could not allow me to have a hearing before the SEC or even before the parliamentary caucus. But I accepted it and kept quiet. Now I'm back at the Ministry of Justice. Maybe some people didn't want me to go back there, but I'm there. And you heard the president say, we are allies. Allies means you agree on more things than you disagree on. That's what being allies mean. Other people, especially my friends in DP, were saying, now that NRM and PLU have endorsed a candidate, please don't embarrass yourself by going up to the end. And I said, I'm ready to receive my vote to show that I believe in myself.
You won 15 constituencies.
I got 15. The president was complaining that those were his votes.
15 constituencies.
And then he said, we need to talk about them. We shall definitely talk. So what's the problem in the opposition? Problem in the opposition is failure to adapt to the new power dynamics. I was joking in my office earlier that that's the problem of Brazil in football. They are playing 1970s and 1980s football in 2026. You see, you must keep adapting. I see some of you saying, if the Mao of 20 years ago met the Mao of today, they would fight. Obviously, they must fight, because the circumstances have changed. You mean if you brought Idi Amin to Uganda and you said this is Uganda, you would say, no, 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 this is not Uganda. Where is officers' mess? Say, no, 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 that's not, there's no officers' mess anymore. It is not there. So the shallowness of our so-called analysts just shocks me. You must keep adapting. You must keep adapting to the changing circumstances. So the music changes, you are still dancing the same way. Okay, it may be a good dance, but those who are looking at you will wonder whether you are deaf. So we kept telling our friends in the opposition, the time has come for us to engage President Museveni, whether behind the scenes, whether what, through iPod. Others were making it a point of pride. We will never be photographed with President Museveni. How? And then me, Mao, they said that I'm now part of the junta. But now, what strategy do you have? So don't think that this is just about the opposition. We must build a Uganda which is safe for all political parties. Because if a house catches fire, then there's no safe room. You cannot say, my room is safe. You pray for those whose rooms are burning. Eventually the fire will catch you also. When I was a young man in parliament, there are those who used to mock us because of the war in northern Uganda. But did they know that $1.7 billion, which would have built schools and roads and health centers in the southern part of the country, was being used in the war in the north? So you are paying a price whether you believe it or not. It doesn't need a very big brain to understand that. It is costing you. So even the NRM needs a safe Uganda, which is safe for all political parties. So the failure to adapt is what has mainly caused many of the disagreements. The other problem in the opposition is hypocrisy, pretending. One time I came here and I said Dr. Besigye was in talks with President Museveni. First they denied it, then the data came out. So you are talking, you are fighting. What is what? Like any referee, it is his duty to scan the field and see when a flag is up to respond to that flag, because we work together. It is as simple as that. And it doesn't require me to insult anybody's mother to get that point across. So I call upon all of us who are trying to build a better country to realize that ultimately we all need the law, by the way, even those who abuse the law. We need the law. I believe some of you are students of literature. You may have read a book called A Man for All Seasons. In that book, there is a chancellor of England called Thomas More. Sir Thomas More was having an argument with a man who really loved to wield power. He was called Mr. Roper. So Mr. Roper says, if I'm chasing the devil, I'll cut through every law in England while pursuing the devil, because my objective is greater than any law. Then Sir Thomas More asked Mr. Roper, and if the devil turned on you, would you not need the law now to defend you against the devil? So we all need the law at one point or another. Even those who abuse the law. So let us not crack our heads over things which don't concern us. In this country, fortunately, we have elections every 5 years. That is actually the ultimate point of accountability. But if citizens go to vote because of 5,000 shilling, 10,000 shilling, then what do we do? What do I do as Minister of Justice? If a local mayor can corrupt you, if an MP can corrupt you, then you say, I'm not well represented. Now, who do you blame? The restoration of the vote is the most important revolution that we can talk about, to give force to the vote. So, I don't need to talk about corruption, because I know most of you are mainly concerned about the dramatics. But it has a history. The Parliament has granted the request by the movers of the motion asking for authority or permission to present a bill. And they claim that the purpose of the bill is for the leader of the opposition to be elected by all members of Parliament who are not NRM. That bill has ever been presented before and it was rejected. It was presented by our member actually in that case. Ironically, our member who was totally opposed to the cooperation agreement. But later we understood the circumstances under which he was arm-twisted to bring that bill. So, yesterday I spoke to the Deputy Attorney General. I asked him whether he had got any instructions to draft the bill. And he told me, yes, the Attorney General's Chambers has got instruction to draft the bill, because our duty is to draft all bills. Because drafting a bill is not like just writing anything. It is a professional thing. I need to look at what will be in the bill. But still, I requested that we will invite him to come before the IPOD summit so that we discuss it as the political parties of Uganda. Our position as DP is well known. We stated it the last time. We believe that where there's only one opposition party, then you have a leader of opposition from that party. Where you have many parties, then that leader of opposition is called leader of the official opposition. And the official opposition is elected by citizens. It is the citizens who decide who should be the official election. The official opposition. We discussed that matter here. I don't know whether there's any new thing. That's why I want to hold my horses first. I want to see whether there's really any new thing. But either way, it is our duty to discuss it because we are the party leaders who will be meeting. The national chairman of NRM will be there. I'll be there on behalf of DP. There will be the leaders from the other political parties in parliament, including NUP. And then the question is whether that candidate must come from the party which is the runner-up party, or even an independent can. So let us not mislead the public in this debate. Let us deal with it with the seriousness it requires. That is really my own view. Concerning the former speaker, why don't you go and interview her? Has any of you tried to access her to interview her? NBS, you used to be good friends. You gave her a lot of airtime. Have you gone to... Please go and interview her. But she is not a convict. She has not yet even been charged. I know there are investigations going on. I also don't know whether she's actually under arrest. You are saying she's confined. But the only way to test that is for her to try to get out. I think if I were her, I would get in my car and try to get out. But I think she knows the problems she's in, and she's well advised not to make it worse. But interviewing her would be a good idea. Yes, please.
Thank you. I want you to cast more light on the issue of IPOD.
I think you saw the Secretary of the Treasury announcing that he has disbursed the first quarter funds. Now, those funds include funds for political parties, depending on numerical strength. So, in my own opinion, the purpose of IPOD is to create a habit of dialogue. Now, if you can have dialogue in Parliament, if you can sit in Parliament, then why can't you sit in IPOD also? So, the formal invitation will come on my instruction when the actual date has been established. So they are right. They have not yet got an invitation to the summit because the exact date has not been fixed. But I can confirm to you that the President wrote to me and he copied the letter to the Principal Private Secretary, instructing the Principal Private Secretary to fix a date. I was out of the country, but I believe by tomorrow we shall have a clear date. It is our duty to solve the problems of Uganda. And really, citizens, don't get entangled in problems which are not yours. Ugandans voted, and they gave a responsibility to the leaders. My duty is to tell us your expectations. Don't insult us. Don't insult our wives, our mothers. You can tell me that, no, but now I expect this from you. That's enough. And if I don't deliver, you wait to punish me at the next election. That's how democracy works. So my view is that let the IPOD leaders take charge of driving IPOD. We are pleased that the rhetoric of NUP has toned down a bit. I've told you this before, that I look forward to a democracy in Uganda where we have two big blocks. We have the block of NRM and its allied organizations, and then if the NUP could really stop getting in its own way, because they are really good at getting in their own. Have you ever tried to walk and you fall alone? You know, one leg hits the other leg and you just fall. I wish they could stop getting in their own way, which is tragic. They can become a rallying point of the alternative to the ruling group. And that is the kind of system I want to see. It is there in Nigeria. It is there in Ghana. The two parties trust each other. I want to reach a day when nobody is scared of NUP winning. But you will be scared if somebody is campaigning and they say, oh, we are going to eat your cows, we are going to do this. How do you think that kind of democracy can work? So I'm very sincere about what we think we should build. My duty is not to interfere with judicial decisions. At the most, I can engage with the judiciary on administrative procedures. Let me tell you, not even the Chief Justice can tell a judge or a magistrate, make this judgment. It is contrary to judicial ethics. That's why we have Court of Appeal. Occasionally, we have had people who even, after losing a case, they go to the president. It is a cultural problem. There are those who go to appeal to the president as if he is a court of appeal. You can only go to the president if you want him to mediate a conflict. So, the judiciary does not own these cases, by the way. In a criminal case, it is a citizen versus the state. Then the judiciary has to decide on the guilt or innocence of the accused person. So, Ugandans should not lose hope in the independence of the judiciary. And I will speak to the Chief Justice. He will give you the best assurance. I believe he will. Now, when the judiciary makes a decision, like when Honorable Miriam Matembe was freed on bail, everybody was saying, oh, this magistrate is very courageous, and so on and so on. Decisions are made according to the law, the evidence, and the facts. Now, but arm twisting of the judiciary becomes possible if cases delay. I think it is important that the judicial officers make decisions quickly. I don't know why you should adjourn a bail decision and say, I will give the bail decision after 1 week. Bail is the simplest thing. Now, sometimes the issues being raised are also really not important. The people who we are talking about are very prominent people. Now, the sureties who come, sometimes people come and say, this surety does not have a permanent place of abode because he's renting. The majority of us rented for ages, but people knew where to find us. So I think what matters most is a shift in the attitude of both the citizens and the officials to know that these laws are passed by the parliament. Uganda baagala nnyo ebyonoonese era ali awo annoonya naye leero osanze ndaba tudde ku nsonga ez'eggwanga kubanga obukulembeze bwa DP busibuka ku constitution era obukulembeze bwonna bulina okwesigama ku constitution y'ekibiina. Weewaawo waliwo obutakaanya nga tuli ku nsonga z'obwa sipiika. Kati ekyo twakivaako kiri mabega. Kati omanyi fe abamu nga bwe nagambye ffe tulengera wala. nabagamba wano nti former speaker tajja kubeera next speaker era nakitandikirawo nga tukyali kyankwanzi lwe yafiirwa nazaala we n'akomawo ne mugamba nti sobodde okubuuzaako n'okusaasira outgoing speaker mwenga mubisekerera n'olwekyo oluusi mumpulirizanga kati ono byaleeta kirungi agambye mumyuka wange nze nkulembera executive nze supervisor waabo bonna nze mba supervisinga waliwo ensonga ekireetera constitutional DP okuyita Ssenkagale wa DP chief executive officer kitegeeza obuvunaanyizibwa bwo bwa waggulu chief executive officer oba Ssenkagale tamala gayogera tomala gafuumula bigambo weewaawo bakwatagana ne former speaker nga bo balowooza ajja kuwangula teyawangula ekyo kyaggwa akyali vice president wa DP kati nze namusaba kuva dda ti ze nina emirimu mingi gyenkola jangu otambuza ekibiina ne mu nnyonyi wabeerawo co-driver ye co-pilot ne mu mamotoka wabeerawo co-driver kakati wobanga oli wavunaanyizibwa obuvunaanyizibwa bwo si kulengeza mukamaawo wabula kulaba nga bapasenja obatuusa awo yandibadde avaayo n'agamba nti mawo bapasenja abasuuliridde talina gy'abatwala steering kangikwate mbadde wano ninda abantu boogere ku nsonga za LC1 tukunga abantu tunoonye ssente tusobole okutuuza enkiiko ekibiina kino sobodde okukiddukanya nga sikola nkwe ate sirina kliiki yonna era siri munnamukweyagaliza kuba oluusi mpulira abantu nga boogera Mao yali afa obwavu Museveni yamutaasa naye mujjukire ekifo baakimpa mu gw'omukaaga 2021 kummwe wano wofuna akasimu akava ewa president ng'akuwa n'obwa RDC president omuteekako obukwakulizo kati nze Mao ayina ababaka 9 nenteekawo obukwakulizo neŋŋamba president ndi mukulembeze w'ekibiina nzikiriza neebuuze ku bannange oluvannyuma ne mugamba waliwo ekiwandiiko kye nkusindikidde tuseeko omukono abantu bamanye omulamwa ki gwe tuliko ekifo kino kye ndimu president yakireka nga kyereere mwaka mulamba mumbuulire ku nnyonta abantu gye balina okufuuka baminisita bameka abasobola ogamba omukulembeze gwanga nti tumale okukaanya Abannayuganda tuli miliyoni 46 olowooza tewaliwo ayinza okujjuza ekifo kya Minister of Justice n'olwekyo nga bwe nabagambye nze nina olugendo lwange gammawo ne sitole yange n'ebisaanizo byange n'emikisa gyange eginnondoola buli omu alina emikisa gye n'ebisiraani bye n'olwekyo eno platform ya DP siyinza kugikozesa ate kwanukula mu myuka wange ezo ensonga ze zitutwala mu retreat ajja kujja abyogerere eyo kubanga okwawukanako ne UPC president wa DPC yalonda kabineti ye. Naye okusinziira ku constitution ya DP bano bonna balondebwa National Delegates Conference. Naye oluusi abantu oba balooza nti ate gwe oli mu kunyumirwa nnyo. Omanyi waliwo omuntu ayambala olugoye ne lumunyumira ne walukuwa terujja kunyumira. Omanyi bino ebintu bya nsi. Naye nga kati tuli mu kutendeka abavubuka banaatwala ekibiina mu maaso. Kati ku nsonga y'abo abavubuka simanyi DP at heart.
No, UID. Hey, no DP at heart.
Baali beeyita ba UID naye olw'emyaka ndoza ne balaba nga tekikyatunda naye nga nakyo si kipya kuba tubadde ne DP at heart. Naffe twaliko abavubuka naye tetwali bwe tutyo. Naffe twawabulako bakama baffe. Zena nafuuka memba wa DP 1989. Naye okulowooza okuyingira NEC nakirowoozako 2005. Naye ennaku zino omuntu ayingira leero enkya owulira nti obwa pulezidenti bwa DP mbusobola. Wakafuluma seminario ti oyagala bwa Archbishop. Banaye ekibiina kyaffe tukiwe ekitiibwa. Ne woba nga toyagala kuwamaawo kitiibwa. Naye ku lw'abajjajjaffe abaafiirira ekibiina kyaffe. Kino ekibiina mukiwe ekitiibwa. Bino bye boogera ebya accountability. Abaawandiika constitution ya DP baali bagezi nnyo. Ba protectinga Ssenkagale wa DP ku nsonga za ssente. Kuba ekisooka president wa DP siye principal signatory ku nsonga za ssente. Kuba Ssenkagale wa DP bamukuumanga na munswa. N'olwekyo buuza abalala ku nsonga ezo. Omuntu alina obuvunaanyizibwa ku nsonga z'ensimbi n'ebintu by'ekibiina ye National Treasurer. Oyo Mao gwe mwogerako yasanga DP eri mu bupangisa. Kati agaseeko ku kibiina kati ate gwe muvunaana nti ali mu kusaasaanya ebintu by'ekibiina. Tetwalina maka, twali bapangisa. Ekibiina nakijja mu bupangisa. Wano tuli waffe ekyapa ya Mairo ate sente zaali zaffe. Tulina plot 2 wano eno gye tuliko n'eri emabega. Tulina ne plot kumpi n'olubiri lwa Ssaabasajja Kisosonkole Lane ku mirembe gya Mao. Nakwata obukulembeze bw'ekibiina ng'ekibiina kino kyakabaawo myaka 56 ng'eri mu bupangisa. Kati oyo ye Mao gwe boogerako. Abo abavubuka beddeko nabo. Mbasaba zino ensonga ng'eza printer na biki ez'ensonga bazireete mu maaso z'abakulembeze ba DP. Ze sikolanga mulimo gwa printare era seetaaga kubeera ne printare. Kino ekibiina twakifunidde ne baasi. Ne baasi temwagiraba nga tugilonkinga. Tulina ogilonkinga nate wano. Kati tuli mu kunoonya sente kuzimba hostel y'abavubuka emabega wali bo bali mu kwogera byanjwajwa. Njagala mumanye nti kana akaseera ke tulimu si kangu, waliwo ebikemo. Naye singa Mao abadde corrupt bwino yenna yandivuddeyo. Kuba banoonyereza ku Mao ne babikula wano ne babikula wali tewalika ne bagenda n'eggulu ti abadde chairman we district yali abbye ku ttaka. Olaba n'ekibiina kyange myaka 15 nga sina kifo kimpa musaala, nali consultant nga nkola emirimu gyange. Ekibiina kyatuula wano ne kigamba nze nga president bampe duty facilitating allowance $15,000 buli mwezi. Nenzigaana. Mumbuulire bameka bayinza okugaana sente ezo. Ekino ekibiina tukiteekamu ssente kubanga embeera gye tulimu nzibu nnyo. Buli omu ateekamu ssente okusinziira ku busobozi bwe. Kino ekibiina tekisasula musaala. So naye lwakuba naddala mmwe ba bloggers munoonya nnyo ebyonoonese, kati oluva wano mujja genda mubanoonye ti abadde wali ne muteekamu n'ebirungo. Naye nze mpise mu bintu bingi, ate ebiseera ebisinga nsirika n'okusirika, seetaaga na kubaanukula kubanga sibalaba nga saizi yange. Ebiseera ebisinga mbabuuza, president wa DP alina okuvuganya ku bwa president w'eggwanga. Kati akasanke kakulemye nganga ono gisobola. So mujjukira luli nga tugenda Mbarara, abamu mbu baagala kukulembera ekibiina ne mbagamba tewaliwo president wa DP eyalemererwa okuvuganya ku bwa president at least once or twice. Naddala nga tufunye independence, Benedicto Kiwanuka yavuganya, Paul Kawanga Semogerere yavuganya, Sebaana Kizito, Norbert Mao. Kati bano bonna abatasobola kuwangula constituency oba ekyalo oba LC, obuzito bw'omukulembeze tobulabira wano ku kitebe. Fe abamu abakulu baffe baatulaba olw'emirimu gye twakola ku ground gye tuva. Njagala nkulabe, tovimbira wano ng'ekikere ekiri ku luzi. Tovimbira wano, oba ova Busoga genda mu constituency y'e Busoga otulage amaanyi. Gammawo bwe yagenda mu Gulu municipality n'anokolayo constituency. Ekyo kye kiraga nti olina amaanyi, naye okuyita abanamawulire n'ofuumula ebigambo ekyo tekigasa. Naye nasoose kwogera nti ekibiina tugenda kukitereeza. We are going to clean up the party. And of course, oluusi oba okola repair oba ku kisenge, ekisenge kyonna osooka n'okikuba, ebitasobola ebitanywedde ne bigwa, all the dead wool will fall off.